So, you want to work in Italy? Time to bust out the bow tie. Hey, what's up? I'm Rafael di Furia, aka Rafi D is me, back at it again, and let's get back into it. But first, this thing's choking me. Okay, so, you want to come to Italy and work here. There's a few things first, so let's start out with the basics. You need a codice fiscale at the very least to get a job because they have to take care of taxes somehow. Also, you'll need to be in a legal position where you can work. But before we get into the video, if you want to see more content like this, please be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and if you could also give the video a like, I'd really appreciate that. There are some people who do come here as students. However, if you come here as a student, you are severely limited in the amount of hours that you can work per week, and you don't want to go over what you can legally do. It's not a good idea. It's no bueno. Anyway, this video is inspired by one of you who decided to get in contact with me over social media. Sunny C wrote, "I follow you on YouTube. Hey, thanks. Is it possible to get work in Italy as an Italian American if we are not 100% fluent? I'll be recognized as a citizen of Italia shortly." Well, Sunny, I'm going to try to answer this to the best of my ability. In short, don't expect to get a very high-level job or really any kind of job if you don't speak Italian. But if you only speak English, potentially you could get a job as an English teacher. However, really for anybody who, even if you have a small basis in Italian, it's not going to help you much when you're trying to get a job. You really need Italian if you're trying to get any kind of job here. However, if you only really speak English, potentially you might be able to get work as a private English teacher through a private language school. If you're trying to teach at a public school or a private school, they do generally prefer that you do speak Italian. However, that depends on where you are. I've personally noticed in areas that are smaller, they're a bit more flexible on that. I know in some of the bigger cities that there are some schools where you do have to have all of the proper degrees and all the certificates and all of that. However, in some of the smaller areas, you can just go in with a TEFL or a CELTA certificate. If you're going to get a TEFL or a CELTA, be extremely careful as so many of them are scams. And yes, you will need some documents if you're wanting to work here, like the codice fiscale. If you want to see more about that, you can check the card up in the corner, or if you don't see a link to that, check down in the more info section below and I'll leave a link down there. And also you'll need a carta di identità or a passport. But if you want to teach privately on your own, what you can do is you can go to your local library or coffee shops and ask if you can put up a flyer. Some libraries and universities and colleges, you'll actually have to get permission and with a stamp on it to be able to put up a flyer. But personally, I've gotten the most inquiries and private students through posting up flyers at the local university. But keep in mind, most of the inquiries that you'll probably get if you're posting at a university here will be for getting certification in English. Many young Italians want to leave the country and maybe go to an English-speaking country, and for that they need to be able to prove that they have a particular level of English, and usually that's through the Cambridge exam. But we'll talk more about teaching English in a different video. I'll do another video about that in the future, so be sure to be subscribed for that. What I would probably recommend to somebody who really only speaks English and doesn't want to teach English is try to get a job where you live before you leave, but not just a job, a remote job. Data entry, marketing, or consultancy. Because if you can start becoming a digital nomad before you leave and start building up some sort of solid income before you actually arrive here, that will make things here a lot easier. However, that won't necessarily make it easier for you to get an apartment. And it doesn't matter what kind of job you're doing, even with teaching English, if you don't have a long-term contract, it may be a little bit tricky to find an apartment here if you're wanting a proper contract. Really, the bottom line is you need Italian if you want to get a job here. And because you're an English speaker, it may be a nice asset to have. However, it's not a unique selling point. Italy is unlike a lot of other countries that I've been to. I found that in other places that I've traveled to, like Portugal, for example, English is much more widely spoken, depending on where you are, especially in the Algarve in the south. And it's possible to function without learning any of the local language. However, Italy isn't quite like that. And even if you want to become a tour guide out here, for example, you still need some Italian, and you need to have it be on a pretty good level so you can speak with tour operators and other strategic partners. Italy, for better or for worse, and I think actually in some ways for the better, is a country where you can't really get around if you don't have the language, and at least in my experience. I mean, yes, okay, you can get around in the touristy areas, but if you're living here, you're not a tourist. But if you really want to function in Italian society, you need the language. Even if you just want to get a job at the American consulate, aka McDonald's, aka the Golden Arches, aka Mickey D's, you'll need some Italian. In other countries, like I've mentioned in Portugal, for example, you potentially can get a job if you're only an English speaker. But here in Italy, the average person on the street, they don't really speak English so much. And in some places, people may become offended if you don't speak Italian to them. But when you try to speak Italian, people really do appreciate that. And even if you go for a job interview and you can show them that you speak some Italian, at least just the basics of what you need to function for that job, they'll really appreciate that. And even when you try to use Italian in general on the street, people completely warm up to you in a completely different sort of way. Also, there's some other factors which you need to take into account. Currently, Italy's financial situation isn't the best, and there's around 11% unemployment. I think it's actually a little bit less than that. But the unemployment level changes depending on what part of the country you're in. Regardless of the type of job that you're trying to get here, it's worth having a relevant resume. But just so you know, for those of you from North America, in Europe, generally they call a resume a CV, or sometimes curriculum in Italy, or curriculum vitae. What will also help you even more, even with posting a flyer for teaching English at the university or library or whatever, is if you can have it in English and Italian. Especially the Italian is probably even more important. But anyway, Sonny, I hope that gave you a little bit of a better idea of the situation out here. And I really wish you the best of luck when you come out here. Anyway, that's it for this time. I really hope that this helped at least a few of you out there. And as per usual, this is an open conversation. So feel free, if you have any questions or anything to add, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below here on YouTube, or to get in contact with me over social media. And also, if you want to see more content like this, please be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and if you could hit the like button too, I would really appreciate that, as it all helps the channel. And as always, I'm Rafael di Furia, aka Rafi D is me, and I'll see y'all next time. Later.